happened, but we haven't maybe talked about it massively after it
Mhm.
happened, is AEW's latest pay-per-view, Double or Nothing.
Yeah, that's it. We've
Um,
not really spoke about it, have we, on air at least? Um, what did you guys think? What did you make of it, Wayne? What was your thoughts on the show? Because you don't
I
watch
mean, I
Dynamite
think
every week, or do you? Do you watch Dynamite
I
each week, or do you dip in and out?
the thing with Dynamite is that I really tried. I mean, when it started, I really tried to watch it every week, and it just did not work out like that. And so there was a long period there where I just thought I'm not going to pay attention, and it's not fair to I just don't have the time or whatever. I came up with a million excuses. But to be quite honest, as often happens when you see a name, especially from your past, a name that garners a lot of attention, you suddenly think maybe I should be watching something. So I would say, in a way, that in the same way that Bray Wyatt gets me to watch SmackDown, I would say that 100% definitely Jake Roberts had me watching TNA. No, excuse me, AEW, but you know what I mean. The point
Yes.
is, he had me watching Dynamite. And
Mhm.
so when I heard that Jake Roberts was back and he was doing these amazing, and you
Yeah.
go to bed and get about 5 hours sleep or 4 hours sleep and get up for school.
Mhm.
And sometimes you just get away with that and you'd be sleeping in the back of maths class,
Yeah,
the kind of thing. You
definitely.
don't really get away with that in the same way with work, because there's a
No.
level of experience, in a sense, that they demand from you. And if you're falling asleep or you're sounding and you're making mistakes, you could be making a serious mistake. So, in that respect, what my point of all this is, that it is great to see AEW have pay-per-views on a Saturday night, because
Completely.
I hope
Yep.
that benefits the American audiences with The Hangover, and I really hope it benefits the UK audiences for the same reason. And
It's
I
actually
really
one of
hope
the
it,
big
yeah,
appeals to me, being
yeah,
on the Saturday night and knowing I can get up and leisurely watch it on a Sunday is a
yes,
massive part of the appeal. And it's why I'm so gutted that Takeover is now moved, NXT Takeovers have now moved full time to Sundays to mirror the main roster,
yeah,
because they used to be Saturdays as well. And it was the same
yes,
thing
yeah,
where you could relax on a Sunday, watch your Takeover, feet up. We don't have that luxury this weekend, unfortunately. But we still have that 4 times a year, or 4 or 5 times a year with AEW, and it's so refreshing for a UK audience to watch it an hour and not have to watch half an hour before work, stay off your phone all day, get in when you're tired, watch 5 hours. None of that. It's just relaxing Sunday viewing. I wish
yes.
NXT Takeover would go back to that Saturday night format.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I agree. I think, and that's another thing as well. I mean, again, going off topic slightly, but pay-per-views in general, obviously, Double or Nothing, massive advantage there. It was on the Saturday night. When I
Yeah.
think back of watching pay-per-views, and I mean, this must be 99, 2000, 2001, when I was watching them and then going into school the next day, or when when I was doing that, these pay-per-views, other than Insurrection, of course, which was fantastic because that
Oh
would be
yes.
live in the UK on a Saturday night, and even though the card was always really bizarre, it would still be a really good show because it was live on Sky Box Office, and there would be a kind of a great feeling around it. But yeah, it's just, I find that the pay-per-views being that bit longer,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of, again, it takes its toll, because I seem to remember you would start with your Sunday night heat at 11 o'clock.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, you would go into your pay-per-view about midnight, and you'd be done about
Yes.
2:30. Whereas now you kind of
It's like
don't
a
finish until
6 hour
4 or 5 a.m. Yeah, or later.
the rest.
4
Uh,
or 5 a.m.
that's what I've
Yeah,
liked
or
since the
later.
COVID-19.
Four, 5 a.m. Yeah, or
The
later.
formats of WWE,
Four,
they're
5 a.m.
two
Yeah,
and a
or
half hour,
later.
3 hour pay-per-views. Brilliant. It feels like it did back in the 90s, back in the early
Yes,
2000s, where I watched the last pay-per-view live. The name of it forgets me now. It was Money in the Bank, wasn't it? Um,
that's
and it
right.
was over. It was over before the usual halfway point, and I was so happy, so happy that it was done. It was bite-sized. It was concise. It did. I wasn't there thinking, "Oh, I can't believe I didn't get my extra 3 hours of Money in the Bank that I normally get." I was like, "Great, I can go to bed." Um, it is refreshing to cut it down. And
Yeah,
looking at the takeover card for this weekend, that in your house, it's like that again. It's 4 or 5 matches. but they all mean something important, rather than 5 hours of things that we're not that bothered about, like some WWE pay-per-views have been recently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to be honest with you, I remember, like, I mean, April 2000 is probably a good example. Backlash 2000,
One
an
of the best
absolute,
pay-per-views ever.
honestly,
So
honest
good.
to God, right? I 100% agree. And honestly, that pay-per-view, absolute quality. And I remember that being filled with 9, 10 matches, and it was 3 hours, and it was perfect.
It was so much better than WrestleMania as well. I thought,
Yes.
well, what's that like? This is what Mania should have been. And that
Yes.
was at that time frame when I was so into wrestling, the year 2000. Interestingly, Backlash 2020 is next weekend. That was 20 years ago.
Wow.
Backlash is
Wow.
next week. Yeah.
Bloody
That was
hell.
20
Bloody hell.
years ago.
I gotta be honest, like it's one of those things where, there's some great memories of pay-per-views of that era. And I
Oh,
think
it was so good.
one of the weirdest ones, obviously The Undertaker's return in May 2000 at Judgment Day.
Judgment Day,
He
of
did the
course.
whole American badass thing, and
With the
obviously,
motorbike and
yeah, and that of course was on the back of having the hour-long Iron Man match as the main event. And
Austin
it's
Rock,
funny,
Triple H and The Rock, wasn't it?
Triple H and The Rock, but with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee.
Yeah, that's it.
And it was so weird because you were looking at that and you were thinking, like, that whole event, it was just building up to that one match, and that was so unusual for the time. I mean,
remember
Iron
all the
Man
vignettes
matches in
airing. I remember because at the Iron Man match, it was odd because at the time we were at school, half of my friendship group had seen Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart. The other half hadn't seen it. They were too young or they weren't into wrestling at the time, but they'd heard of this mythical hour-long match that happened 3 or 4 years ago. And with and we were all sort of hyped up for Judgment Day, but all we were talking about on the way in was those vignettes of The Undertaker leading up to it. He's here, he's back. And we were like, do you think it's The Undertaker? Oh, of course it is. Who else is it going to be? I don't know. Oh my God, what's happening? Oh, please be The Undertaker. I think we all kind of knew it would be The Undertaker, but we were just like hoping it would be him. And when he came back like that, we were all like, was that The Undertaker? Like, what's going on? This is mad. Really, really interesting pay-per-view.
It is.
I just wanted to welcome in everybody on Facebook as well. We've just gone live on Facebook.
Oh, excellent.
On
Hello,
Radio
Facebook.
Land. Hey, Facebook. We've been on Nova Radio 102.5 FM, novaradio.co.uk for the past 10 minutes or so. But now social media has just jumped in, and so
excellent. Well, you're very welcome to those who are joining us on BBC Two for our coverage of Wimbledon this evening. And, just joining us on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube, and of course, good old Damien in the commentary box in Nova Radio,
right
at the helm. But we were saying, actually, it's funny because when you talk about just to point out, at Judgment Day 2000 also had one of the most bizarre matches I'd ever seen. Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson, the evening gown match for the Hardcore Championship.
That was around the time that my dad had put his foot down and says, I'm not watching wrestling anymore. It's this sissy American nonsense. It's going to send me weird watching it. It is a strange thing for imbeciles to be watching. It's uncouth. I shouldn't be watching it. And my argument was, no, this thing has 100-year rich history. It's a fascinating art form. You should give it a go. He's like, no, I'm not watching that rubbish. You're not watching it. Anyway, I sneaked downstairs being 11, 12 years old to watch Judgment Day 2000. I think I was 11 years old. And no, I was 12. I was 12 years old. And of course, my dad hears a noise downstairs. So down he comes to find out why his only son is up in the middle of the night. And there he is watching Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson in an evening gown match. And my dad was not pleased that I'd woken up the whole house with this, what I was saying. Oh, no, it's really sensible wrestling. It's not juvenile at all. And then I was completely put in my place by my dad. Like, why are you watching this? And of course, two men in their sort of late 50s, early 60s, rolling around in dresses wasn't the best thing to endear him to the sport of kings. But I enjoyed it no end.
It's I mean, it just goes to show that, like, I don't think. I mean, I used to say, look, they didn't make pay-per-views like that anymore. And then, to be fair, I saw Double or Nothing, and I thought, hang on a second, this is pretty decent. And
Yeah.
the event itself was, in general, obviously the lack of an audience in some way took away from it. I know they do a little bit with the wrestlers at the side of the ring
Yeah,
and the staff, and they're kind of
and it helped.
applauding and go, yeah, but I gotta be honest. I mean, Mike Tyson may have found it boring. Mike Tyson may have found it boring. I
Uh,
found it quite good. I have to be honest.
I loved it. I thought it was really good. Only few critiques. I thought the ending of the Cody Rhodes Lance Archer match was overbooked with the schmoz with the managers. Thought they could have
Yes.
done without. They needed to get involved somehow, but I thought the match just would have been a nicer package without that randomness happening for no reason.
Yeah.
And I felt that I didn't like Big Swole in the audience. She was like squaring up to Lance Archer, being like, come on then, knowing full well that he's not going to hit her on live TV. And I think it just made the big monster of Lance Archer look a little bit naff, that he just had to
Yeah.
ignore Swole squaring up to him. If I was all elite, I'd probably have a word with her and be like, if you're in the audience, you're not stealing the show, because you made the wrestlers now look a little bit daft from not confronting you for being this big character. She got over, but the point of the match was Lance Archer and Cody Rhodes, not to be looking at Swole in the audience. Minor nitpick, but it took me out of it a little bit. Main event I loved. Not the main event, sorry. I did love the main event, but the championship match.
Yes.
I thought Luke Harper, of now Brody Lee, obviously formerly Brody Lee of CZW, always been a big fan of his. I liked how he was kept so strong in defeat. The only thing is, I didn't like Moxley's finisher being kicked out of so much. He's got lots of other moves in his repertoire that he could have used instead of having his finisher kicked out. Where they could have used that headlock driver that he does, the Gotch style pole driver, some of the moves he does in Japan, like maybe could have done a brainbuster, anything. A big high impact, oh my god move, and had Harper. So I keep calling Harper Brody Lee kick out of that, as opposed to the double arm DDT, because it did dampen the impact of the finisher a little bit. Wayne, what did you think overall? And the main event, the Stadium Stampede, what did you think of that?
Let me tell you, right? When that guy came out on the horse, I went, that's it. That's that. When that guy came out on the horse, I went, fire everyone else, give that man the awards. The competition is over.
It was good.
It was just, I don't know how that conversation ever came about. They went, we want to do a match. We want to do it in an empty stadium. Okay, fair enough. At one point, maybe we want to get you, in a hot tub or something, and maybe, messing around in a pool, and it's, oh my God, you've got your clothes on, and that's so funny. Yeah, fair enough. I can get that. I mean, the pool is adjacent. It's where the players are. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Obviously, we want to have them wear like NFL gear, and maybe they'll come out dressed as a mascot. And yeah, okay, we can do
Makes
that.
sense. The normal, the usual.
Could we get a horse and do the real sort of stampede thing with the buckaroo and all? You want to do a what? No, that was honestly it was. Yeah, it was, to be honest, right? The answer is it was a bit refreshing. I mean, yes, it was stupid. As you say yourself about Judgment Day and Joe Briscoe and Pat Patterson 20 years ago this month, well, last month actually, when you think about, and obviously with those two guys at the time, as you say, older gentlemen who had storied careers and history in
the best wrestlers ever in their prime.
Absolutely. And there they are rolling around as gophers for Vince McMahon in evening gowns like an idiot, sort of making a mockery of a match that was in itself massively sort of sexist at the time for WWE,
maybe slightly homophobic as well. It wasn't the best look, was it?
Absolutely.
It wasn't the best look.
That being said, you can kind of look at the Stampede match and you could have the same argument, but it's difficult for me to think that in 20 years' time, someone will look back at that match and go, I'll tell you, it was against horses. It was against mascots of football teams. It was bigoted.
Swimming
I think
pools.
actually what they'll look back and go was a bit of fun.
I agree. And like I said before we came on air, in terms of marking the match, I always like to give a match a rating and a pay-per-view rating just for fun. I do it just for fun. I said, in terms of being a good wrestling match, I struggled to even give it 2 out of 10. I think it was 1.5 out of 10, and I was being very generous. But in terms of entertainment, I gave it 10 out of 10. So it was really strange. I've got this, to me, Misawa versus Kawada was a 10 out of 10 match. This was a 1 out of 10 match, yet it was so entertaining that the entertainment value was 10 out of 10. So I sort of ranked it around about an 8 out of 10 all in all. I'm so conflicted because this match is everything I don't like, yet I loved it so much. And it was, I don't like wrestling sometimes I don't mind wrestling being silly and comedy and wink, wink, nudge, nudge and having the exposed and inverted commas and things like that. If that show is already a bit of a comedy show and a bit of a silly premise, whereas with All Elite, with them saying they want to be a sensible sports-based company, then to have that there at the end was a little bit jarring. But I think we needed an uplift in the week we'd had. We'd had a rough week and a rough time in general in the world, not just in the world of wrestling, but humans in general. So I think we kind of needed that, and it was silly, and it did expose the business to new fans. And if people are channel hopping, I'm probably going to laugh at it and change the channel. But for me, I found it so much fun. It was refreshing. The product isn't like that all the time. If you want your serious stuff, you've got your Cody Rhodes and your MJF and things like that for your serious old school wrestling. Maybe it wasn't a main event match. It could have been somewhere else on the card. It was an odd one. I'm very torn. I'm very conflicted because the match is everything I don't like, but it was fun.
You could argue, the same thing in regards to Bray Wyatt and John Cena at WrestleMania, The Undertaker and AJ Styles. You could say that those matches were not traditional wrestling matches,
especially the Firefly Funhouse.
Yeah. I mean, how they could even call that a match or have a winner, I'm still confused. I mean, I enjoyed it as an artistic piece. I thought it was genius, but it was not a wrestling match. It was
It's interesting because I've watched the Boneyard match back about 5 or 6 times. I've actually not rewatched the Firefly Funhouse match back because for me it was so far. Like the Boneyard match could have been a real fight, just shot with IMAX cameras. Yes. I know you couldn't see the other cameraman there. If not for the fact you couldn't see the other cameraman, then that could have just been a fight that was filmed like a movie. Same as the Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano one. It looked like a real fight, just filmed like a movie. The Firefly Funhouse match, that couldn't have been real. There was magic. It was insane. And that's the same as the Stadium Stampede. And I think for AEW, if you're trying to present yourself as this serious alternative to WWE, to be having matches where Matt Hardy transforms into somebody else when he goes into the water isn't what I think they promised at the beginning, but it was fun nonetheless. I think it's when you go to you go to KFC and they've all had chicken, but they've got a Big Mac, and you go, well, do you know what? I prefer McDonald's anyway. It's not what you were expecting, but it's a nice treat.
That's it. And the thing is, I'm often reminded of sort of, Vince's big speech at the start of the Attitude Era when he wanted to make this big point of, we've moved past that time of eat your vitamins and say your prayers. We're at the time of realism. And that was him sort of saying, look, we're done with the comic book stuff. We're going to go for a very much reality check. And the thing is, you can kind of do that. But as the Attitude Era proved at times, you can also go a bit too far. You can also go totally overboard with that. And in reality, it's nice to have a little bit of a balance. And it's okay to kind of look at your Papa Shangos and your Bray Wyatts and go, you know what, there might be something about this. I mean, it's not meant to be, you're not meant to see this as, oh my God, he can levitate. Why the hell is he working for Vince McMahon?
That's it. And with these like mystical characters, to me, it's always been, they're real people, yet they are somehow powerful enough backstage to make it look like he can teleport, or Undertaker with his lightning bolts. I know he's not firing lightning bolts, and I don't think we're meant to think that he is, but there's just this weird grey area where he's obviously got someone in the production truck that can do it for him. Is that a signal to someone in production? It is just this. Is he strange in the head, and he's got a condition where he thinks he is an undead zombie? Does that make him more dangerous because he believes he is this Undertaker? I mean, maybe you could
I
base
mean,
these characters on realism.
I think you raise a good point. I mean, there's a scene, for example, right, in the Buried Alive match between AJ Styles and The Undertaker. Styles puts The Undertaker in the grave, and he's in the grave. Styles gets onto the tractor or the digger or
I know
whatnot.
the scene
And
very
as
well.
he goes to start it up, Undertaker is behind him. And there's this
Does he
big
walk around
reveal
the
of,
tractor?
oh my God, he's behind me.
Yeah.
Now, when I did script writing in uni many years ago, as I said actually on a podcast I was doing the other night, and I was doing an interview about filmmaking. And as I said right at the time, they said to us, my lecturer said, there's a thing called artistic license. It is suspending the willingness of disbelief.
Suspend the
So
disbelief. That's the
that's
golden
it.
rule of
That's it.
wrestling, isn't it? Suspend the
Yeah,
disbelief of the audience.
absolutely. And the idea is that we don't need to see A to B to C to D. If you jump from A to D, you can allow the audience some credit. And I think too many films, TV series, reality shows, and wrestling is almost having to spell every little thing out for the audience. There's very little artistic license being used. And a prime example, just said, Lucas, would be, what if someone looked at The Undertaker and went, oh my God, that man actually believes he's undead. Maybe he has mental health issues and we really need to help him. And so then there's almost a campaign of like, think about The Undertaker. Maybe the poor man has taken too many knocks. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, they tried to humanize his character with American Badass.
It's exactly what I said when I joined Spanish Announce Table well over a year ago now, is they will start to humanize The Undertaker and peel back the curtain. I said, don't be surprised if we get a documentary without the makeup. Don't be surprised if they start calling him Mark The Undertaker Calloway. It's gradually happening, folks, because I think he's going in that Hall of Fame sooner rather than later. Yes. I've often thought that he would probably wrestle at Survivor Series, being the 30-year milestone this year, and then announce after his match that WrestleMania will be his final match. With all this cinematic universe, he might have 4 or 5 matches left in him if they want to do another. You know, they could do another last ride match where you put people in the back of the car that he did that time. Could do one of them cinematic easily.
Potentially. And this is true. And I mean, you know, when we talk about that Iron Man match at Judgment Day, as we were earlier, and we talk about The Undertaker returning, obviously the big thing about The Undertaker's return at that time was he'd shed the whole Ministry of Darkness era. Yeah. That was gone completely. He was back as the biker. He was back as the American Badass. He was bringing his then wife to the ring. You know, he had his, and it was like The Undertaker's wife. Like what? You know, it was, that was how person, it was. Yeah. He was coming out.
They mention his name. Yeah, they sometimes call him Mark Calloway in a couple of backstage promos. And you got to see his house, and his full Texan accent came out, and chewing tobacco instead of embalming people. And it did humanize him a lot. I always liked the American Badass, but because I was quite young at the time, I just pined for the Undertaker that I knew and loved to come back. I wasn't ready to let go of Ministry Undertaker, and he actually did start to turn American Badass before Judgment Day, but it was only slowly hinted. When he left at the end of '99, he'd already started wearing the bandana and talking like the American Badass, but he still wore the eyeliner and had the black beard. But he was slowly integrating in. When he left at the end of '99, he was pretty much the American Badass, but he wore eyeliner and had the black beard. And when he came back, he shed all of the Undertaker, and he was just American Badass. And I just wanted the Ministry of Darkness back. I wasn't ready for that yet. 12-year-old.
It's funny actually, because for me, one of the best WrestleMania matches I've ever seen the Undertaker do, and obviously like he's done some phenomenal matches over the years, but one of the ones that always sticks in my mind that in a sense very few people sort of still talk about. They talk about Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar in these days. They talk about him winning the heavyweight title. They talk about him against Jimmy Snuka because that was the debut. They talk about him against Jake Roberts. They talk about, but actually the big boss man, Hell in a Cell, the match he did in the cage at WrestleMania 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People find that one boring. I didn't. I was really into that. I really enjoyed that.
Just to cut in for a sec there.
That's all right.
We have a Ken doll here to unbox.
We have
Liam's
a what, sorry?
We have a Ken doll here to unbox. So he'll be diving in very, very shortly.
Oh, excellent. Good news.
Whilst Liam is in the process of dialing in, I just wanted to mention something which I noticed at Double or Nothing was obviously they were drowning Matt Hardy in the pool, and he'd come up and he'd be a different Matt Hardy, and they said, we're going to kill him. And those were Ortiz's exact words. I thought to have that just a few days removed from the death of Shad Gaspard was a little bit tasteless. It didn't offend me, but I just thought I could see other people finding that distasteful. Having wrestlers actively try to drown somebody and come across and say, we are trying to drown this man, and he looked like he was drowned in the water a few days after a famous wrestler had drowned to death, and they knew it. I think that was just a little bit short-sighted. It did, like I said, it didn't upset me. It didn't offend me personally, but I can see, given the audience, the target audience of All Elite Wrestling, they're very inclusive. They're very people with a very modern day view of things. I could see a lot of people raising an eyebrow to that. Maybe absolutely. Just a little eyebrow raise. But like I said, it didn't bother me personally. But knowing the clientele and the audience of AEW, I can see a few people thinking that was a bit distasteful.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I think sometimes there needs to be a little bit of forethought about these things, especially if events in the world are going on, and especially with what's been happening in America in the past week, and obviously the problems and the troubles in Illinois at the moment, and obviously if you have stuff happening there at the same time, if people are vocal about it on Twitter, you'd like to see it reflected in some way, maybe not as a political statement, just have it in the back of your head for when you're doing
know your audience is the golden rule. I mean, they still could have used the swimming pool. Just maybe not have somebody drowning it would have maybe been a little bit more.
No, we appear to be joined. We appear to be joined by the man himself. The charming Kendall, Mr. Lee Melcher. How are you, sir?
Hello, guys. Can you hear me? First of all,
I can hear you loud and clear. How you doing?
Well, you're right. I'm doing well, thank you. It's the first time this has worked with audio, so.
I'm glad to hear that we were the successful guinea pigs. You're live on 102.5 FM right now, Nova Radio.
Woo!
Liam, we were talking about Double or Nothing.
Yes.
Do you know what, guys? And Lucas was surprised when I said this like a day after the show. I still haven't watched it.
What? No. It's one of the best pay-per-views of the year. It's really good. You have to watch it.
I mean, I know the results. I've seen little clips here and there, but I haven't not watched the show.
Definitely watch MJF and Jungle Boy. Definitely watch the Cody Rhodes match and watch the main event, I would say. Not the main event. I keep calling it the main event because it should have been the main event. Moxley and Brody Lee.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely do that.
They keep him looking strong.
100%. You need to watch that. We'll get a hashtag going. It'll be Liam Watch DON. That'll be it. Hashtag Liam Watch DON.
Hashtag Liam Watch. Yes, get it going.
Yes. That's it. Getting it retweeted, getting people out there going, yes, watch this event.
Yeah. No, I
send it to studio at novaradio.co.uk.
It is indeed the email address. Yeah. If you want to send it in
with something to
that's it.
Yep.
If you want to send us in any messages or you want to add anything to the show this evening, as always, it's studio@novaradio.co.uk, studio@novaradio.co.uk, and operators, and by operators we of course mean the very talented Damien Stone, is standing by to take your email there live from the Nova Radio studios. Damien, tell us a little bit, because I know you've been a bit silent focusing on the technical side, but do come in for a moment and tell us all what's going on in Nova, what's happening, and what are the points from the Helsinki jury tonight.
I genuinely do want to say, sorry, I've been sort of busy with the screens and that, but I mean, Double or Nothing, it had one or two good points, but they did sort of take them away slightly at certain parts. I mean, I think, to be fair, the world didn't need to see Tully Blanchard's face on the front of Sean Spears' underwear. I don't think Tully wanted to see that either. But
let's go back to the evening gown match.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it did a good job at basically being a decent event. You know, I mean, Stadium Stampede, not me thing at all. Did find little bits and bobs to enjoying it, but as I said, I probably wouldn't have had that on as a main event.
Yeah, I would have put that before the title match. Personally, if that was me. I still can't get over the Stadium Stampede match. I'm shell shocked. I don't know what to think. I loved it and I hated it at the same time. I want to watch it again. It was strange. I just don't know how to describe it.
Like, I feel like I would have done it like cinematically, but I feel like they didn't want to be compared to like WWE in that sense with that kind of match. But I think that's how it would have worked the best.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen bits of that match. Obviously, I haven't seen the show, so I can't really comment. But I feel like the way I would have went creatively with that is the whole like cinematic approach.
And made it look more like the Boneyard match, where it's filmed like a movie and like that. Yeah,
definitely,
I agree. That would have been a good way. And it kind of would have excused the silliness of Matt Jackson with a broken rib, Northern Lights suplexing someone across a whole American football pitch, Matt Hardy transforming into somebody else, and things like that. You could have turned a blind eye and gone, "Oh, do you know what? Yeah, it's just one of these cinematic matches, isn't it?" It's not my. I like wrestlers like Harley Race, Dick the Bruiser, that sort of thing, Carl Gotch. So it's a long way removed from my normal cup of tea. Yeah, at the same time, it was fun. It was fun. There were horses involved. It was funny.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, props to the horses. This is the thing. And it's funny actually, because of course Canadian or the Stadium Stampede, playing on the name Canadian Stampede, which is not only an event happening in Calgary, Alberta, Canada every year that means a lot to the Canadian people, but was indeed a name famously given to an absolutely phenomenal In Your House event from WWF many years ago, which featured a 10-man tag match in which the Hart Foundation and Brian Pillman took on a team headed by Stone Cold Steve Austin, and indeed featuring this man, Goldust. Now, the reason I mention this is there's a couple of things. This magazine is from January 1996 and was actually given to me by Pablo Melons, better known
I love
to
Pablo,
you guys.
Cool.
Yes, indeed. Toxic Melons, the absolutely phenomenal person who has supported this show from day one. He had this magazine delivered to me this week. I have to say it's an absolutely pristine condition. He has taken exceptionally good care of it. There were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, which I may go into on a separate video, but I've got to be honest, one of them links into something that we will talk about very, very shortly, which I know that Lucas wanted to talk about, which was, of course, classic In Your House memories.
Yeah.
And here's a nice In Your House.
That's it. Childhood memories, flooding back. I must have been about 5 or 6 when that was really, really positive memories.
There is a quite interesting article in here which goes into an In Your House memory that I will come to in a minute. But what I wanted to show you actually was what caught my attention, first of all, about this magazine was it was published at a very, very weird time for the WWF. And by that I mean the keen eye of you will observe that up on top of the magazine, what it reads is Marty Jannetty rocks on. It was done at a time when Marty Jannetty was returning to the WWF after, of course, being a part originally of the Rockers, but he was coming back when Shawn Michaels was effectively fast becoming one of the biggest stars in the world. And Marty Jannetty, if Shawn Michaels was George Michaels, then Marty Jannetty was very much Andrew Ridgely, I'll be honest
That's
with
a great metaphor.
It really is. And this is the centerfold of this magazine. An absolutely incredible photograph.
How 90s is that?
Where Marty Jannetty kind of also looks like Mike Myers from Wayne's World. It's just, it's absolutely insane.
It reminds me of Dave Murray from Iron Maiden for some reason. He's got something about him that has this look. Marty Jannetty was great, one of my favourites growing up. When he came out the audience, when he made his comeback, and it felt real. Who's this guy walking through the crowd? Oh my God, Marty Jannetty's back. Obviously, being very young at the time, I didn't know about his drug problems. I didn't even know what drugs were. I was quite young when all this was going on. All I knew is that somebody I liked was back, and he entertained me. And it was only, in years to come that I discovered all of Marty Jannetty's issues. I think people often say, the Marty Jannetty of the tag team, the loser of the tag team, the one that won't get over, the one that won't be a single star. Go back and watch some of Marty Jannetty's matches. They were very good. Really, really enjoyable. And we've got the Rockers there as well.
Indeed.
There's no reason why he couldn't have been a big star,
No,
really
indeed. And I mean, I think other than the fact that look, I could go through this all night. There are some phenomenal photographs. Here's one. If you want to join the WWF Clubhouse, you can send off and join the WWF Clubhouse. But you were talking earlier about in your house memories, right? And one out of this magazine caught my eye because I had actually been reading about it recently on a list. And I thought how amazing that the magazine that I should get sent at random should feature a report from In Your House. Let me have a look. The In Your House event that was held at the Winnipeg Arena in Canada on October 22nd, 1995. Now, this had a number of this had a number of interesting events. You had things on the card like King Mabel versus Yokozuna. You had Marty Jannetty versus Goldust. You had Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Fatu. But the most interesting match is probably this one. Dean Douglas against Razor Ramon.
For the Intercontinental title, was that?
That's exactly what it is.
I do know this pay-per-view. I've not watched it back since about 1995. I might rewatch this tonight.
This is an incredible story, actually, because many people have said that they would like to see part of this story featured on the next season of Dark Side of the Ring. So the story goes, and please correct me where I'm wrong, Lucas, but it does actually mention it briefly in this magazine. The magazine says, after suffering a severe beating by 9 thugs outside a Syracuse nightclub a week earlier, Intercontinental Champion Shawn Michaels was unable to defend his championship belt and was forced to forfeit his title to his scheduled opponent, Dean Douglas. Now, the actual story I've heard is that Michaels was hitting on a Marine's wife, and the Marine and his friends beat Shawn Michaels up.
That's what I've heard.
Yes. But the interesting thing is that for all intents and purposes, not to offend the man, Dean Douglas was a jobber, and he should have never held the Intercontinental title. It would be the equivalent of giving the Intercontinental title to a member of the Mean Street Posse.
It would have been, especially in how he was presented in WWE. He was presented as a joke. I feel, though, if you look at Shane Douglas's work as a whole, he's a multiple former world champion in ECW. Yes. And some of his work in ECW is 5-star. It is really good. I just think it's on WWE there for having somebody like a Dean Douglas or a Shane Douglas, and then making him that character. It's almost like a Genius. What was his Poffo, Randy Savage's brother, the Genius? It's almost like that I'm a teacher kind of gimmick. And yeah, you're right. He was a jobber, but he never really should have been. I think backstage, the clique, Michaels, Nash, Hall, X-Pac, Helmsley, etc., didn't like him at all. And I think that's what gave him that jobber position. If you look at his work in WCW and ECW and even TNA, this guy could have been a big deal. He could have been a Razor Ramon, someone on that level in WWE, but it wasn't meant to be. He didn't gel with the right people in the mid-90s. And so
indeed,
it's quite jarring, isn't it?
Indeed, and this basically refers to the fact that within about 2.5 minutes, he went from being de facto Intercontinental Champion to losing the title to Razor Ramon. And even to this day, despite how, of course, you'll remember that the Warlord for many years held the record as being the shortest person in the shortest length of time in the Rumble. And they went out of their way to get Santino Marella to beat that. They went out of their way to do that.
It was 1 second, wasn't it, with Marella?
Yeah. So in terms of Dean Douglas, they would really have to go out of their way for that title to be basically that they would have to really hugely diminish the Intercontinental title to have a champion hold it for less time, really.
I just want to double check to see if anyone ever has held it for less time. I think we're right in saying Dean Douglas is probably the shortest.
I believe Dean Douglas is the shortest. I believe the nearest time is something like 9 hours. So like the night after a pay-per-view, somebody lost
Miz
the title.
Or,
was it
Zack
well,
Ryder.
the Miz,
Zack Ryder, the night Mania.
They both
That's it, exactly.
Yeah,
Zack Ryder and
Dean Douglas, less than a day, followed by Zack Ryder, who had it for 1 day, the Mountie, who had it for 2 days, Test had it for just under 2 weeks, and the Road Dogg and Rikishi both had it for a fortnight.
How in God's name was the Mountie ever Intercontinental Champion? But sure, there you go.
Hang on, wasn't that when the Hitman had the flu or something?
That's it.
He dropped it to Piper, didn't he, at the Royal Rumble, I think?
That's right.
I think so.
That's really good match, actually. In terms of an in your house memory, there are a lot of things like that. But I suppose, Lucas, I know you wanted to talk about this before we came on air. NXT in your house this weekend.
And of
after
course, 21 years in your house.
I know.
Back.
This is
I'm
the first
6 years old again.
The very first since the St. Valentine's Day Massacre of February '99, that steel cage match between Stone Cold and Vince McMahon.
With the Big Show coming out of the ring, wasn't it?
Yes, it was indeed.
Through Austin, through the cage. It feels like yesterday that I sat and watched that. It genuinely feels like yesterday. I sat on the leather sofa at my parents' house, control in my hand, Diet Coke in the other, watching that pay-per-view. Wow, how was that 21 years ago? Mad.
And I believe that was also the night in, and I'd have to go back and double check this, but maybe it was a little bit earlier. I'm trying to know. Do you know what? It was another in your house because actually there was another in your house just before WrestleMania 14, in which Taka Michinoku beat Brian Christopher to become the first ever light heavyweight champion.
Yeah, that's it.
So I mean, there's been so many sort of records established in your house, and I would like to believe that. Yes.
Rock Bottom, obviously the famous India Over the Edge pay-per-view, good pay-per-view, but obviously there was that whole solemn tone. Obviously, perhaps it shouldn't have gone on, with Owen Hart passing away over the edge. That one's one that stands out, maybe for the wrong reasons. There's so many, like you mentioned, a Canadian Stampede is a go-to. What was the one called in '95 that you mentioned earlier? Did it have a name to it, or was it just in your house?
It
I want to
seems to be
rewatch it
just in.
tonight.
It seems to be just in your house, but
Right.
actually, there's an ad in the back of the magazine for In Your House 3, which is 3 belts, 1 match. So you've got Shawn Michaels, the Intercontinental title, Diesel, the heavyweight champion, and they're going against Yokozuna and Owen Hart
Oh,
when they
brilliant.
were the tag team champions.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, brilliant.
yeah. So
Lots of happy
I've got
childhood
to
memories in
imagine.
your house.
Sorry.
Lots of happy childhood memories in your house. It takes
A
me back
lot
to a
of
time of Pogs and Fiendish Feet yogurts and Tazos and just Mighty
lot
Max
of
and Mighty things, Ninja Turtles.
100%, and a lot of
Lots of
happy
nostalgia for this.
memories in your house. In fact, one of the best memories, if I can dig it out from my trusty drawer, which is here just to at the right time, and if I grab that, I've even got the In Your House video game for the
wow.
PC for the MS DOS, and I've
I
got the
never played
original
that.
instruction manual for the
Wow.
MS DOS, right? And what we've got in here is that you can pick your characters, including the Bulldog, Goldust, Bret Hart, and Owen Hart from
Oh,
the
brilliant.
original instruction manual of In Your House, which is without a doubt my favorite WWF game ever made. I
Wow.
cannot play this game on my current PC. It outdates it. So the only reason I've kept hold of it is for nostalgia reasons. But there you go.
They should re-release it with modern graphics. Can you imagine?
They should totally re-release. In fact, to be honest, if they did it with the current graphics that they have on that, but with modern wrestlers, I totally support
Even
that.
better.
I'd be like, take 10 wrestlers and just
Yeah.
put that in. But it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal games and it's great memories in your house. I mean, I once wanted to collect every single VHS of every In Your House there had ever been. And I didn't get very far. It was quite an expensive thing to do when you're like 11 or 12.
Yeah, I remember. You
Yeah.
get them in like Virgin Megastores or something like that. There'd be like a wrestling
Right.
section, and I got a few ECW ones when I was about 11. And some old the Silver Vision, was it called? The old
That's
Yeah,
right.
so-
Silvervision
yeah,
was
they
so-
filmed like
yeah.
house shows just for video, wouldn't they? And I used to buy those, and it'd have weird like Undertaker matches and things, and just I think it was Lord Alfred Hayes presenting it. It's just a strange time, a pre-internet time. It's funny.
Yeah.
They do things like the hotlines where you'd ring in, and then they do like hotlines, and it just seems like alien now that you have like a hotline. But back then
Yeah,
it was like a way of
it's
interacting.
It's really weird, like the whole. That's right. So the Silvervision exclusive pre-show.
Yeah.
So you'd
Funny,
stick on
wasn't
the tape, and as you say, Lord Alfred Hayes would be there going, "Hey, welcome to the exclusive pre-show, and
That's
you
it.
can only see this on your Silvervision
Your
cassette."
VHS that you purchased. Well done. Whereas now it's
Yeah,
be on
yeah.
the network or
And I think a lot of that footage, I don't know if that footage has been transported over to the network. I don't think it
I
has.
think it has. Oh, I don't know.
has it? Okay.
I assume it has. I
Yeah,
assume it has. Certainly the matches will have been, I'm sure.
Some of the free-for-alls have made their way onto the network.
Okay.
So I'm not sure about this, the sort of Coliseum or Silvervision based ones.
Coliseum, yeah, Coliseum.
Oh, Coliseum home video, absolutely. I think
That
there's
was it, wasn't it?
we do have to talk about a bit of a change to the WWE network. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Oh.
No, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. That was a bit of a hitch. My battery may go soon. So if I disappear from this show, that's going to be a weird one. But let's see how we cope with that.
Okay.
I know, obviously, going forward, we talked about the fact that the WWE Network have set up a new free service,
Yes.
and sort of a partial free network. But just before I touch on that, I feel bad because I think, Liam, do you have any idea what we're sort of talking about when we talk In Your House from 20 years ago? I'm not trying to offend you, but
No.
you must have been only just or maybe not even born when some of these matches originally happened.
Well, you were just on about the 1995 pay-per-view from October, and that's a month before I was actually born. So,
Oh, right.
Wow.
So, and a lot of the In Your House stuff like predates when I started watching wrestling.
Yes.
I mean, I certainly know what it is, and I've seen a few matches
course.
back since. But that pay-per-view was sort of like gone by the time I'd started watching wrestling. Because when you said, like, when it was first talked about, I thought, because a while back they had a reality show for retired wrestlers, sort of like a Big Brother.
Legends House.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. And that's what sprung to my mind when In Your House was talked about, like Legends House.
Right, yeah, Legends House.
Yeah, but yeah, so the In Your House pay-per-view predates my wrestling watching, so
it'd be interesting to see it back. What I think is more of a burning question, rather than will Velveteen Dream finally win the title, is are they going to bring back the old Titantron where it's just a house? Wayne, I'm sure you remember that the wrestlers would walk out of a house.
I very much remember walking out of a house, and in fact, if we're going totally the way back, Liam might be shocked to know, right? You might wonder where they came up with the idea, Liam, In Your House. Now, it was a good marketing ploy. So the idea was, because they were now doing box office events on a month-by-month basis, which they hadn't done before now. The WWF, they normally did about 4 a year, but now it was a monthly event. And of course, it was in your living room through box office, be that Sky or whatever, in your house. The very first In Your House, though, they actually gave away a house.
Yeah,
They
real house.
they legitimately gave away a house, and I think the guy who won it was like 11 years old at the time. It was insane.
Brilliant.
At least it wasn't like at least it wasn't like the time Vince pretended to give away $1 million and had the
Titantron explode. Land on his head.
Well, I'm kind of thinking, like, you know, there are weird things like that. Like, I remember, for example, MTV in America in the 90s, they did a big competition in which they gave away a chance for Metallica to play live in your living room. So this guy from Florida, Metallica, showed up in a truck one day and basically just went into his living room and set up and played a set for him and his friends, you know, in the kitchen. And so when you think of WWE or WWF giving away, this was at a time when that was a major prize, and it would still be considered a major prize now. But you can imagine WWE, it's almost impossible for them to do giveaways on that scale. Like, there would be that many hundreds of millions of thousands of entrants. It would just be, you know,
insane, wouldn't it? Now,
yeah, it's so obvious that WWF are so much of a bigger company than they were then.
It's funny because apparently the house they gave away cost more than the buy rates they got on pay-per-view for the actual show. So they actually lost money on that one. But of course, the fans came back for In Your House 2 and 3, and they made money back. Yeah, completely. But for the initial 6 weeks, they were sort of out of, you know, in a deficit in terms of.
We're on a loss.
That does not surprise me.
Well, I mean, you've got to remember that I suppose when you look at the history of it, everything was a gamble at that time. So
yeah, of course,
that was only a couple of years after. First of all, Vince is losing some of the biggest draws in the 80s to WCW because they're coming in and they're offering these guys huge pay packets. At the same time, this isn't that far removed from the drugs trial and the fact that Vince nearly went to jail. You know, so Vince is kind of going, listen, we have to do something. And actually his attitude after he got past all of that business with the FBI and the doping scandals and the possible incarceration was that he's just started pushing the product more and more. And that's when he actually first started doing the commentating. And so people just figured he was a commentator, and then suddenly
I always thought he was.
Yeah. It wasn't until the screw job that he came out to be
realised,
that
yeah.
kind of Mr. McMahon. Brett screwed Brett. Let me tell you about Brett.
Interestingly, when he cut that promo, he was under the impression that people would view him as the hero and Brett as the villain. He was really out of touch. really, really out of touch. He's like, oh, they're going to love me now. It's like, no, you've just become the biggest heel in wrestling history.
Yeah.
So, yeah, completely out of touch.
But I'll bring it back when you were on about the old Titantrons returning. The old sets were so much better. They had so much more creativity. They were all unique
sets for each show.
Yeah, and
the swinging, like Backlash 2000, I think it had the swinging like hooks.
That's right. The swinging
looked like it was the end of the world.
Yeah. King of the Ring with Shane and Kurt Angle in 2001 with the big chair.
Yeah, and the big chair. The Royal Rumble 2000 when it was like the New
York taxi cab.
Every single pay-per-view looked unique. Now we rarely get that. I think there's one for Mania, and you might be lucky if you get one for SummerSlam.
Yeah,
and that's about it really.
But it was like
they could do it augmented reality. So they could do it augmented reality style with the you know, I mean, when you get the graphics floating in the middle of the air on SmackDown and such.
Oh yeah.
If they were going to go to the expense of building it and rigging it, then they could just do it that way.
You could, especially now there's no fans there, and there's no one to actually look at it. You could quite easily do a CGI screen in the background.
I gotta be
fans.
One of my favorite sets of all time is the Halloween Havoc set.
Beautiful set.
Sponsored
big old inflatable pumpkin deal.
Halloween Havoc '98, sponsored by Snickers. with the pumpkin, I totally.
Yeah. That's the one.
And the old Nitro set where they'd come out of like it was all robotic and it all looked like they were coming out of an elevator or something in the future. That was cool. Weird.
And I gotta be honest, right? When you look at the Royal Rumble 2000 as well, when you talk about that New York taxi cab, the entranceway is so tight. And that's a purposefully done choice because they've done shows since at Madison Square Garden where the ramps and the entranceways have been much bigger. And they've chosen to put a smaller entrance. And that, I think, deliberately made the show feel more personal. Whereas really nowadays, they'd almost want the bigger entrance.
Grand stadium,
yeah.
It works both ways, doesn't it? Especially when there's no fans there. It really helps to have these small, tiny, intimate shows. Like people really like Daly's Place for Dynamite, and I love Daly's Place. But I actually preferred it when it was at QT Marshall's gym for a few weeks, when it was in this weird, pokey, hokey little room, and it just looked like an underground. Like these people shouldn't be here. And there's only 5 people there, and it's this weird, and it just looked like a little tight Fight Club community where they've met up and they're having these matches. Whereas in Daly's Place, it's kind of exposed because of the size of it. I think without fans, and even with fans, it just looks more intimate and more like a dirty little Fight Club when it's tight and unique. In the big stadium, we often lose the intimacy of a combat sport and the story they're trying to convey, and the fan atmosphere can be lost in the ether, especially outside. You can't hear anything. It just sounds like you're in a field.
Yeah. I really like unique entrances as well by wrestlers. So like you get Triple H, every WrestleMania comes up with something
always incredible. His is always the best, isn't it? Undertaker's is always good. Rey Mysterio is usually all right.
I like that. I like that they put that thought into it. And I have to be honest, when I was watching The Undertaker's documentary recently, and they were the first episode, they were talking about when he was about to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And he was doing the rehearsal the night before. And it almost surprised me. I was like, hang on, they do a rehearsal. And I thought, well, of course they must do, because it's a massive media undertaking. But it was just so weird to see them rehearse a wrestling entrance. Yeah. Because, of course,
where do I stand?
That's it. Having been to that many shows, I mean, you know, as I'm sure Liam himself would attest, you know, you might have I don't know. I mean, you might have a bit of a rehearsal in your head, but it's normally a case of, you know, the entrance is unique because it's the only time you're doing it that night, you know.
Yeah, you sort of like say like I'm like third match in, or like
Yeah.
you sort of like you can hear the crowd and see how they're gonna feel like from the other matches. So I I've got a base entrance like a default entrance, but I sort of base like how energetic that is, or different stuff about that on how the crowd are reacting that night.
Yes.
I'd never like, as you were saying about WrestleMania and Undertaker, I'd never rehearse my entrance,
Yes.
because that could change depending on how the crowd are reacting. Because if I go out, say if I'm a face, if I go out there and the crowd aren't really up for it and aren't really loud, I'll change my entrance to try and get them up for it.
Right. Okay.
Whereas if I'm a heel and I go out and they're like, there's a few of them cheering me, I'll specifically target those guys to make them hate me.
Yeah. Turn them out and make them boo you.
Yeah.
I suppose the question then, although I imagine that there's real emotion in the crowd, and I imagine it's very real for everybody who's there, when The Undertaker comes out at WrestleMania, how much of that is a theater performance before the bell rings, and how much of it is actually real? Because he must be effectively going, these people have paid a lot of money. They know what they want. They're waiting for this moment. This is what some of them have traveled around the world to see. I just have to get through this. And then obviously the match is a totally different ball game. But it's almost that entrance. It's like
Theatre,
when
isn't it? It's a
in
spectacle,
Saudi
Cirque du
Arabia.
Soleil.
Yeah,
Sorry, what was
they
that way?
paid they paid for that entrance in Saudi
Yeah.
Arabia. That's
Oh,
what they
definitely.
paid for.
That was a brilliant entrance. It's better than the match.
Yeah.
I think we know with The Undertaker, though, it's going to be a 5-minute entrance. And then I look forward to his matches for the entrance a lot of the time now. It's the spectacle of The Undertaker. It's getting to say that you've seen him come out, tip the hat, the lightning, the blue aura, the eyes rolled back. It's the package now of seeing The Undertaker walk to the ring. And yes, he's still competent between the ropes. No one's expecting him to going to be doing the swan diving anymore, or some of the moves he could do 5-6 years ago. I think for me, The Undertaker is a package of the entrance and the taunts and the everything. And maybe now he's the American Badass. It might be something different. It might be the motorbike ride to the ring, or it might. For me, it's like a Cirque du Soleil. It's a performance now at this stage.
Yes.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, I was only gonna make a joke and say it makes you wonder what they're gonna do with Becky Lynch's truck. They used it once. What the hell are they gonna do with it now? I'd like to think that they keep it and they don't just like tear the truck apart and respray. I'd like to think it's somewhere.
All this stuff is somewhere. Ric Flair's robes, The Undertaker's urn, Papa Shango's stick that he had. It's all somewhere. And I'd like to think one day when they open a Hall of Fame or a museum, it'll be on display for me.
They used to have a little show on Network Warehouse where all of that's kept, where they went around and showed you.
Triple H, aren't they? Triple H and Steph are going on like something that would have been perfect for Zack Ryder, but they sacked him instead.
I know. I was only thinking that. Like I was only thinking that because they were talking about the fact that that they're going to get Triple H and Stephanie to go around the country hunting down merchandise which is in the hands of private collectors. And kind of the first question I have is, well, WWE, it's not Hasbro, it's not Kenner. You're not going to find prototypes ending up or press releases. Like, how do these treasured mementos end up in private collectors' hands?
Well, there was a time where Pedro Morales pawned or gambled the WWE Championship, which is why he brought the felt version out, because he lost it in a gambling match. So that's out there somewhere.
Okay.
The 2 versions of the title before that, Bruno Sammartino got robbed from his car, so that's out there somewhere. So there are the Crumb Rhine, the big gold belt, the most famous version of the big gold belt, the WCW one that was the NWA Championship, the one that Flair had, the one that Sting had. No one knows where that belt is. It never went to WWE. By the time the WCW invaded, they were using an all gold version that Scott Steiner had brought in. So where the original silver and gold version of that belt, the famous WCW title is, no one knows for sure. People think Scott Steiner might have it. That would be interesting. The
There's
old NWA title with Kerry Von Erich, not Kevin, as accidentally put earlier on Facebook. Kerry Von Erich's initials engraved in it. I'm not sure where that title is these days. Does a private collector own it? There are a lot of these wrestling heirlooms, especially with titles. I believe the original, the famous Bruno Sammartino belt, the one that replaced the one that was stolen in the car, the famous blue one, the tall one. That one recently went into the Wrestling Museum in New York, a famous wrestling museum.
Yes.
So these titles are out there. I think it would be interesting for Triple H to be going around trying to acquire these wrestling heirlooms with an open checkbook, because he's a millionaire.
There's a few Hall of Famers who've sold their Hall of Fame rings on as well.
Yeah,
different stuff like that.
Billy Graham did, didn't he?
Yeah, and there was again like an episode of that Porn Stars. Some guy had signed Macho Man gear, the hat, the jacket.
Oh, I'd seen something about that. Yeah, I must look that up. I must try and find that clip, because I watch a lot of that on YouTube. I must try and find that. And
it was something, I can't remember who he was, but it was he did something for the family, and Macho Man's wife was like, because I think he died by this point. Yes. And she was like, "Oh, just go into the closet and take anything you want."
Wow.
So,
I mean, there's obviously that's going to be an interesting show to see. Now I'm being told that I'm having a couple of technical difficulties with a battery. So as disgraceful as it is, I may have to leave live on air, which I apologize about. But I do want to say, because he's let me know that he's listening in. Hello to James Barris. James, I hope you're well. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in and to watch us this evening. So thank you very much for that. But I do have to, I think, rather than unprofessionally go dark and what has happened to me, if it's all right with you guys, and it's okay with Damien, if I may take my leave, and I will see you, of course, all again next week, and see you out there very soon.
Of course. Nice talking to you again, Wayne. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely. But for all of you out there in Nova, obviously you're in great hands, and you've got some fantastic content more between now and 10 o'clock. And I will hopefully see you with a video all about something bizarre from Mike this week, and we'll try and get something uploaded. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
See you soon, guys.
Good night.
Liam, one thing I wanted to bring up, we've been talking about In Your House over the past sort of hour or so, and the famous In Your House moments, and how In Your House has been a big part of our childhood. Obviously, we've got In Your House this weekend with TakeOver. Have you seen the card? What are you thinking of the card? What do you think is going to happen? Do we want to run through the matches?
Quickly run through them, because I can't think of them off the top of my head.
I'll go to. So first of all, we've got Keith Lee defending the NXT North American Championship against Johnny Gargano. So obviously you've got an unusual dynamic where the big powerhouse is the babyface.
Yeah.
The young, plucky, sort of fast one is the heel. So it could be it's an unusual dynamic where the big one is the babyface.
Yeah, I think because both guys are really talented, I think that could be that could be really good. And I enjoy what they've been doing with the vignettes recently as well. And obviously,
a lot of people don't, but I think they're quite cool. I like those vignettes.
So yeah, me too. I feel like that'll be a good match, and I have Keith Lee down to win that one.
Me too. He's just so good, isn't he? Keith Lee. If I was WWE, I would be handing out Keith Lee losses extremely sparingly. He's the sort of guy that loses once or twice a year, if that, in my opinion. You want to be keeping him strong.
Definitely.
He could be a future WWE champion easily. He's the total package. He is the total package. He can even sing. He's
Yeah,
brilliant.
exactly. He
He's
can,
faultless.
he can
He's
talk, he
absolutely
can
faultless.
move, he can,
Timing on
definitely.
him, oh, it's something else. And he looks like a wrestler. He looks like a wrestler. Do you know what I mean? He's just this massive monster, but he's a big bear, isn't he? He's just
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
big
I
sexy
understand where
bear.
you're coming from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I'm looking forward to that, and I agree. I think the right choice is to have Keith Lee win. However, Johnny Gargano has recently turned heel. He's sort of got a new stable in him and his wife, and now an on-screen unit. Those are two things which usually mean you're going to win at the pay-per-view. You're in a new relationship or stable, and he's now aligned with his wife on TV, whereas before they were more separate. And he's recently turned heel. To me, I would think that they might consider him winning, but I think that would be a mistake. Personally, I think you need to keep Keith Lee with that title. Another match on the card is Finn Balor versus Damian Priest, former Punishment Martinez. Again, that could be a slobber knocker. That could be
Yeah, definitely. I don't get what they're doing with Finn because they turned him heel.
They did the same thing with Io Shirai, where they turned them heel, but they're not really heels. They're like tweeners. They're like cool heels or badass. There's a mixture between like a cool heel and like a badass baby face, isn't it? Where they're actually more face than they are. I think Finn Balor's a baby face.
Yeah, so I don't get what they're doing there. Obviously, I'm a fan of Finn. Damian Priest, again, he's a relatively new guy. Are they going to give him a big pay-per-view win?
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think Finn will win that.
I agree. But I think what they did with Finn is they wanted, because he was this smiley, blue-eyed, plucky baby face, always grinning. I think they just wanted to turn him heel to make him this edgy badass, and then integrate him back in as a badass baby face rather than the baby face. I think from what they've established about Finn Balor, who he is and what he stands for, and where his position is on the card, I don't think he should be losing to Damian Priest, who is a relative newcomer to NXT. It'd be a great way to get Damian Priest over, but I think Finn is the one. I think you want to keep building Finn.
Yeah, especially definitely keep building Finn up.
Yeah, we've got an interesting triple threat for the women's title. It's Charlotte Flair defending against Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai, who I think is the best wrestler in the world. What do you think is going to happen there, Liam? What do you envisage, or what do you want to see?
I think that Charlotte. I can't see them letting Charlotte drop the belt so quickly after Mania, considering they're now having her as champion on all three brands.
Exactly. Even if Io or Ripley pin each other and Charlotte doesn't take the loss, I still don't see them doing it.
Yeah, no, I feel like Charlotte's as much. I like the other two so much, but I feel like Charlotte's just going to dominate this match and she's going to win.
I agree. There are three brilliant wrestlers. They're actually three of my favourite wrestlers, male or female, in WWE at all. So to have them in one match for me is a big buzz. Three of my favourites in the ring at the same time.
So, but sorry, who are they presenting as the face and heels in that match, though? Like,
right, okay, right. It's funny you ask. Right, Rhea Ripley is the babyface, but she's a badass babyface. But she's a babyface. Io Shirai has been turned heel, but she's actually in the same boat as Finn Balor, where she's sort of a tweener, where she was a badass heel, and now she kind of started going back babyface again. And now they've started making her a bit heelish. So she's sort of this weird tweener in the middle where she's a cool heel, where she's strictly speaking a heel, but she does cool things that makes the crowd cheer for her.
Yeah.
Which I don't really like, because she was such a good, actual nasty heel. And Charlotte Flair, who we see as one of the biggest heels in the company, but for some reason WWE are convinced is a babyface. So it is a bit of a weird one.
Yeah.
I really want Io Shirai to win because she's the best wrestler in the world. But I think you've got to keep the belt on Charlotte Flair. I think if you hot potato that belt around, it's going to devalue it. You want to keep it on Charlotte, who you've established is the best wrestler in WWE and in the world, best female wrestler. WWE want you to think Charlotte Flair is the best female wrestler in the world.
Yeah.
That's the story they're telling. So for her to lose it so quickly, I think will devalue everything involved. Keep that belt on Charlotte for a little bit longer.
The only other way I could see them potentially making Charlotte drop the belt is if they're going to move her over to Raw to replace Becky whilst Becky's gone.
But strictly speaking, she's already a part of Raw. Charlotte Flair's listed on the Raw roster.
Yeah, she's
on
appearing on all
NXT.
3 shows, though, isn't she?
Yeah. But she's on NXT because she's got their title. But for some reason, she's always on SmackDown as well. So
Yeah.
she just does what she wants. Charlotte Flair.
She's only got 2 appearances on SmackDown left this year, hasn't she?
I think so. I don't know because she's got a championship if that changes the rules. But I think we are right in saying it's 4 per person a year, isn't it?
Yeah.
To move brands. So yeah, she's got 2 appearances on SmackDown this year, providing that there isn't some clause about champions being able to move. I know the women's champions can move shows. Women's tags can move Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and that doesn't come off of their wild card rule, whatever we're calling it now, the open invitation, whatever it is.
I mean, she has been on screen a lot more than I would have liked, to be fair. I don't know. It's just.
I don't mind. If you're going to build someone to be a megastar, first of all, make sure they're really good in the ring. And I think Charlotte is. I don't mind them ramming her down our throats because she is really good. You know, when they were doing it with other wrestlers who perhaps had a limited moveset and we were meant to suddenly think they were Superman, it felt forced and it felt but they're ramming her down our throats. But she's a heel, so I'm meant to hate that. So that's good. And she's actually really good in the ring. So I don't mind this. I don't mind seeing hours of Charlotte Flair every week because I feel like she's forced down my throat, which makes me hate her, which is good because she's a heel. But I don't want to change the channel. It's not go away heat because her matches are brilliant. So yeah. I'm quite into this Charlotte dominating. And when she finally does take a loss, it's going to mean something big.
True. Let's sort of figuring out where she's going to take that as well.
Yeah.
They've
protected her a bit too much now because now she.
Yeah, it will not be for a while. I can't see her taking a loss potentially for the rest of the year.
Wow, that's a bold claim.
But I think as well we're seeing so much more because obviously they have a limited roster.
Very true.
This has happened. This is happening, so they're like, oh well, she's a great wrestler. She's decent on the mic. She's a recognizable name straight away. We'll have her like on all of the shows, but who knows? Who knows what will happen?
No, I agree, Liv. One match that I am extremely looking forward to because it's actually a dream match of mine is Tommaso Ciampa versus Karrion Kross with Scarlett Bordeaux is what his partner or wife in the corner. Karrion Kross obviously famously was Killer Kross in Impact and in Lucha Underground and various other promotions we've seen wrestle in the last sort of 3 or 4 years. This is going to be, I mean, just Karrion Kross's entrance alone is worth buying the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
What do we reckon is going to happen here? Because I am so into this feud. I love both wrestlers.
Yeah, again, Tommaso falls into the category of badass babyface.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where they're going a lot more. But they can't make Karrion Kross lose his first pay-per-view.
Even if it's by DQ.
Especially after building him up so much through all of these promo packages, having him come out on NXT, destroy people.
Yeah.
For him
and then he
lose.
loses at the pay-per-view. Even if I can see them, I don't want them to do this, but I can see them having him lose by DQ.
Yeah.
Even then, that would be stupid. Even then, no.
It makes him lose all momentum and he might as well just disappear off TV again.
You want to keep this guy. The way he's been built is like he's the second coming of, he's a future WWE champion. He's going to be on all the magazine covers. He's going to be on all the toy lines, the chocolate bars. He's your next Undertaker.
The thing is, though, he's got the look.
Yep. He's got the total package.
And with Scarlett Bordeaux, it's a great pairing, and I'm actually so glad they've kept them together.
I am as well. I just think it works. They've tweaked it. Obviously, the first time she came out miming, they've tweaked that slightly now. And just every time there's a little bit of fan feedback on Twitter or social media, they tweak this. It's brilliant. I think she will be, or she could potentially be as big as Sable was, where, on like all the magazine covers, all the photo shoots, on all the video game covers, I could see them making her.
Do you think for the time being they'll like Zelina Vega, who's really talented in the ring, but they keep her out of the ring. Do you think this is what they're going to do with Scarlett?
I hope not, because as like with Zelina Vega, Thea Trinidad, exceptional in the ring, but you never get to see her wrestle. I would like to see, and Scarlett, but Impact made that mistake with Scarlett by having her wrestle only a couple of times, and most of it was on Explosion where no one watched it. Scarlett Bordeaux is a great wrestler. The same as Thea Trinidad, who I think Zelina Vega, I think, is a brilliant wrestler. She should be mixing it up, even if it's on episodes of Main Event. Just have her wrestle.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't. You know, I think people are saying that she might overshadow Cross and be like Sable and Mark Miro, where all of a sudden she's meant to be the valet, but actually no one cares about Mark Miro. They just care about having Sable wearing bikinis on magazine covers and stuff. I can see it being a similar thing with Scarlett once Vince McMahon sees her. But Karrion Kross is going to be a hard person to ignore. I don't think you can look at the two of them and say we're only going to focus on her. I mean, you could, but from a business standpoint, Karrion Kross is so good. It'd be a shame to see him become another Mark Miro.
Yeah, and there's so many dream matches you could have him in, not just in NXT as well, up on the main roster as well.
Oh, I know. Karrion Kross is so good. I'm a big Kross fan. I like a lot of people don't like him using the cross jacket as a finisher. I quite like the submission. It's kind of like a Taz mission. People are joking that there's like how many people use the choke as a finisher now. It's different versions of it, but you've got Shayna Baszler, Samoa Joe, Karrion Kross, like another couple of other wrestlers, I think, that all use the choke submission. And yeah, they're all different versions of it, but it does look a bit samey. I think it suits Kross. I think it kind of reminds me of the Taz mission when Taz used to do it. He's a maniac and he won't let go, and I quite like the finish. I like his moveset with the suplexes and his facial mannerisms and his body language. I just think he's got this heel monster down to a T. So we think Kross is picking up the victory.
I think he has to. It will be stupid for him not to.
Absolutely. What do you think? What kind of match do you think it's going to have? Because Karrion Kross has traditionally had, and even outside of WWE, squash matches where he will beat someone in 3 minutes and he looks like a badass. Tommaso Ciampa is a different ballgame. This is Tommaso Ciampa. Is he going to flatten him in 5 minutes, or are they going to have the monster have a competitive match on the first outing? Because normally with a big monster, you want them to have a squash at the first pay-per-view over the fact that they're a monster. It's only been a few weeks. I don't think we're going to get a squash. I think we're going to get a 10-minute competitive, Broadway. What do you think?
I think they're going to actually make it competitive, unless they're sending Tommaso Ciampa up to one of the other brands. That's the only reason I can sort of see for them to squash him. Even then, they could send him off with a loss, but still still keep him strong. I mean, you saw what happened with Riddle and Thatcher in that pit fight. I mean, that should have been on this in your house.
Why wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's crazy. Isn't it?
Is it possible? Is it possible to have a 10-minute squash match, so to say, that Tommaso gets his moves in, and then just have Karrion destroy him at the end?
Wouldn't be a squash match, would it? But I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Where Tommaso gets all his moves in, but they're only like 1 count or 2 counts, and then
or have him kick out before the ref
even gets on his knees.
Have him kick out of a finisher at 1, and then get up.
It would be good. He hits his finisher like the what is it, Tallulah Bell or whatever, and then he just gets up before he can even go to pin him.
Almost as if almost Ultimate Warrior versus Triple H back.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Just
exactly that.
Have him get hit with a move, and then just get straight up and flatten him. Yeah.
Do you know what? As much as I love Ciampa, I'd love to see that, because it would really cement Kross as the nuts on NXT.
Yeah.
I think, again, in a similar way with Keith Lee, you want to keep this guy as strong as possible. You want to make him God, nothing phases him. Do like the Road Warrior Animal used to do, where you punch him in the nose and he doesn't blink. You just make him no sell. Remember Undertaker in the early 90s? I know a bit before your time, Liam, but I'm sure you've seen videos. The Undertaker in the early 90s would clothesline him and nothing would happen. Punch him in the face, nothing phases him.
I feel that's what wrestling's lacking these days, and I know people will get sick of it, but we need a heel, a big monster who is not affected by anything.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like Killer Cross, could fill that void.
I agree, definitely. Those old Road Warrior Animal, those old Undertaker footages where they are clouting him in the head, or they go to do a body slam and he's just not moving. So they punch him in the throat.
And then just like a club to the back to take him down.
Doesn't help. Yeah. Even with a clothesline, nothing budges him. Just, oh man, that's what Cross should be. And then he does one of those great big suplex and just cracks someone on the neck and 1, 2, 3, and keep him strong.
Exactly.
Watch him lose now we've said this.
We're like, this needs to happen, and then he loses in 2 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. The main event is an interesting one. It's a last chance match for the NXT Championship. Adam Cole is once again defending the title against Velveteen Dream, but this time, if Dream loses, you can't have another shot at the title as long as Adam Cole is champion. What are we thinking then?
Again, I feel like Velveteen Dream needs the win.
Okay.
Well, it's a last chance match. Of course, he needs to win. But
yeah. It's a high stakes one, isn't it? Though.
Will he be one of those guys who goes up to the main roster without ever winning a title? But I can't. His character, his whole persona, his whole gimmick, I can't see being successful on the main roster.
I think once Vince McMahon gets hold of it, he'll completely squash it and not understand it. He'll be like, "So it's Prince? I don't get it. I don't get it. What is it?"
I feel like, and I've just got an awful vision that if he goes to the main roster, they're just going to whack him in as a fourth member of the New Day.
Yeah, or make him really wacky and zany, like Goldust or something like that, where he's like this weird. Yeah, I agree.
Or like an early Fandango, something like terrible like that.
It's like cheesy.
So I'd like to see him remain on NXT.
100%, I agree.
Because I feel like Adam Cole would fare much better on the main roster.
Yeah.
But again, because that used to be the rite of passage. Once the champion lost his title, he moved.
He disappeared.
Either SmackDown or Raw. But that doesn't have to happen anymore.
No, it's not a. Yeah, it's a linear move now, isn't it? I know Dijakovic and Matt Riddle are going to Raw and SmackDown very shortly. That's not a call. It's
would this be a case of if Adam Cole lost and then moved, would you send the rest of the Undisputed Era with them, or would that just be the end of the Undisputed Era?
I'd keep them together personally if it was me. As long as that book's strong, and they remember to act sensible, be treated sensibly, I would like them to stay together personally. I still think there's a lot to do with that four-man unit.
Yeah.
Myself and the Ginger Genius, Colin, who's been listening and watching, we're discussing this in the Facebook chats earlier on on the video, and we just, I mean, the idea came up the Undisputed Era turning up and basically doing what the Nexus did across both brands until they get run out of one of the brands. And then sort of setting up Survivor Series, or indeed bring Lee and Dijakovic up to to Raw to sort of basically counteract them.
Yeah, I'm with you. No, that makes. I think Dijakovic will be on Raw by the end of the month. I'm sure.
How would you book him on Raw?
Because I think Matt Riddle's gone to SmackDown because they want to keep him away from Brock Lesnar. So I think Raw is now doing it that way.
Would you book him as like really strong?
Yeah, definitely. I really like him. I think he's got the right look for WWE.
He's really talented as well. He's really talented as well.
I see him. I would probably keep him heel though. I know he's sort of a tweener again at the minute, where he's more leaning into face. I'd probably I'd make him a heel, and maybe go on the first 6 weeks having win squash matches or something. I don't know. I think he's strongly.
because he's quite an agile guy as well. Like,
Very much so. He could do all the springboards to the outside, and
yeah. So I
swanton bombs.
feel like Vince wouldn't want a guy of his size to do something like that like on Raw. You know,
Yeah.
because he's like, oh, like a guy like Seth, who's a lot smaller than you's doing this. Like, you're
Yeah.
going to make him look bad because you're like 6 foot whatever and you're doing these. I feel like he's going to be like limited to what
I
he's
agree,
allowed
and
to
that's
do.
what I worry about Keith Lee, because I think Keith
Yeah.
Lee is so good. He'll be, have his wings clipped on the main roster, which is why I'd like Keith Lee to stay in NXT.
And obviously, WWE are limiting the number of dives allowed.
I think that's a good thing, though. Personally, I like that.
I agree with that, but like that was one of the appeals of Dijakovic. He was a big guy who could do these.
Definitely, that's why I would say let him do it at pay-per-views. At a pay-per-view, you have him do the dive, the F5 springboard backflip moonsault to the outside. While you have him do that at your pay-per-views, your SummerSlam. But so what I would do is I'd have him do one crazy spot at SummerSlam, and then have him do something completely different at Survivor Series, and then have him do something different at the Rumble, where we're not getting it every week on Raw. So we're like, oh, this again. It feels special when you limit it out like that. And when he does do a dive, it's SummerSlam. Drew McIntyre did that big front flip on Raw this week. The front flip swan dive to the outside of the ring.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it every week. So it's like, wow, I can't believe he did that. I know he can do it. He used to do it when he was in 3MB. But because he doesn't do it every week, it felt special when he did that front flip dive. Then when Roman Reigns does the swan dive to the outside of the ring, it feels special because he doesn't do it very often. Things like that.
I mean, I think that's. Going back into history and digging one up from. Actually, that's probably an unfortunate turn of phrase, but didn't they do something similar to Sean O'Haire? And once he got up there and was sort of doing his tryouts, someone goes, "Well, someone your size doesn't do that."
Yeah, well, he used to do the swanton bomb in WCW, didn't he? And I think they put a stop to that.
He was extremely agile.
It very much goes the other way though, because like I'm not like that. I'm height wise I'm all right, but like build I'm not the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
So I once met someone that were like, "Oh, like you're a high flyer, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Not all the time." And they were like, "But you have to be because you're like quite small." And I'm like, that's not the way wrestling works.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
But I don't have to be a high flyer.
Yeah.
I'm quite comfortable going up top and doing stuff like that, but I don't have to do it.
No, yeah, exactly.
So
exactly, it's quite presumptuous, isn't it, to say that you must do all these spots and flips and stuff because you're a smaller guy. Look at some of the best cruiserweights ever, junior heavyweights ever, pound and ground. Especially the heels. The heels don't want to be doing shooting star presses to pop the crowd. They want to be submission based.
That's another thing that WWE it might be wise with, because like typically, like especially like on the independents, it's usually the face that does the dives.
Yeah, of course.
And then on WWE they've got Seth hitting dives all the time.
Yeah, it's the same as in All Elite are the same. When a heel does a dive, I die a little bit inside. I honestly.
Yeah. I feel like when I turned heel like a while back, I started watching a lot more 80s wrestling, and my style is a lot more like 80s old school, like stuff like that. Like, but I can still go to the top. I've got a semi decent 450. But as a heel, I wouldn't. As a heel, I'd only really bring that out in like big matches.
Of course.
And I'd tend to miss it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna.
You can do it, but then the crowd, yeah.
Like, 450, go at the top, and the crowd are like, "What? Hang on!" And then I go to do it, and I'll do it, but the face moves out the way.
Yeah, that's it.
And then it gets a pop. It gets a pop from the crowd because I've done it, but it also gets a pop from the crowd because I've missed it.
You missed it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's brilliant. But that's good storytelling, and that's good heel face dynamic. That's what I like to see. What I don't like to see is when you get these dives from heels to the outside, and the crowd. It's like, who am I meant to be cheering here? Like, I mean, I just see too much. Not clear who heels and faces are in wrestling sometimes, but the way you do it is perfect. That's obviously the perfect way of doing it. One thing I'd like to say about Velveteen Dream, for me personally, I don't think he's ready for like the NXT championship. For me, I would probably have him lose this match and keep Adam Cole with that title until he drops it to somebody else.
And then have Velveteen come back.
Yeah, because it's not that he can't challenge ever for the title. It's just whilst Adam Cole is champion. So maybe have Adam Cole lose it in its Survivor Series or something. I don't know.
Who would you have as next champion if not Velveteen or Keith Lee? Yeah, I could see Keith Lee, to be honest.
Keith Lee.
Definitely.
That's where I'd be going with it. Velveteen Dream's great, but for me, I don't think he's got everything that a lot of other people have. I know he's learning on the job and he's young. He's really young. I would like him to be nurtured just a little bit more before he goes off to the Raw or SmackDown or has a NXT championship run. I would just like to see him just nurtured a bit more. He's got a little bit of ring rust, I think, from coming back as well. I just have him just put on some really good wrestling matches, get in some exciting storylines, and then just take your time with him. I just think putting that title on him would be rushing the process with him, in my opinion.
I can agree on that one, definitely. 100%. And to be fair, since Finn came back, I'm surprised he hasn't been up there in the main event scene.
No, I think he had one title shot, but I can't remember what happened. I think he got screwed out of the title or something happened. He had a number one contendership match, didn't he? And then he lost it. Someone interfered. Johnny Gargano screwed him out the title, wasn't it? He had a title shot.
Yes,
and Johnny Gargano came out and screwed him over.
Yeah.
Finn Balor for me is another one you could be again putting the title on. He's one of the best wrestlers in NXT.
Again, well, they saw something in him to fast track him to the main roster and make him Universal Champion.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately he got injured.
Yeah. Such a shame.
What would have been? I feel like I don't know. His run could have either went one of two ways. It could have went like Mysterio in 2006, where they didn't really book him very well as champion, or they could have given him such a good run.
Do you remember before he won the title, he beat Roman Reigns clean
because it was in a qualifier for the Universal Championship because it was that tournament when and that shows confidence in the guy
massively.
If you put him over your guy.
Just whilst we've got time, I wanted to switch gears. Something we're talking about online before the show is on Impact this week. There was a vignette that aired.
Yeah, I sent it to the chat earlier.
Yeah, I've watched. I just watched Impact before we came on the air. The vignette was actually the best thing about the show. Obviously, Rockstar Spud, aka Drake Maverick, is involved in a storyline on NXT. He's going to challenge for the title, the cruiserweight title tonight. If he doesn't win it, he does not only lose the title or not get the title, he loses his job in storyline. People are saying he re-signed the WWE in real life now, which now begs the question why Impact and heavily teasing he's going to be at Slammiversary.
Surely Impact must have had the permission of all of those guys to use.
No, because it's their footage. It's Impact footage, so they wouldn't. Not with this, they wouldn't, because this is all Impact Wrestling's owned footage. The people in it is...
Hence why they haven't used Rusev and they've just put a Bulgarian flag.
Exactly. They've just got so what we've got is a hooded figure with a whiskey in his hand watching TV. I think it's EC3 with the hood up watching TV because the style is exactly the same. It looks just like his vignettes he's been airing.
And do you not think it's poking fun at the WWE hacker angle? Because he's hooded.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I see that completely. But the people that it's hinting will be at Slammiversary are the Good Brothers, obviously Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, one of the best tag teams ever. New Japan tag teams on Raw as well, big tag team part of the Bullet Club. Rockstar Spud, Drake Maverick, who we just mentioned, is in a storyline in WWE at the minute. Brian Myers, who was Kurt Hawkins in WWE, former star in Impact as well, former tag champion in Impact. Mike and Maria Kanellis, again, big stars in Ring of Honor and Impact, and went on to WWE to be stars there, but didn't quite really get off on the right foot from day one there. And it's also hinting that former Impact World Champions Eric Young in EC3 going to return, so big, massive names, rich in history and in Impact. And also the Bulgarian flag, which heavily implies Rusev.
Rusev.
Yaroslav. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I would love to see Eric Young back because he didn't work for the last God knows how long while he was in WWE. Was it?
For fans of just Impact Wrestling though, the last time they saw Eric Young, he was less bulky and had like curly hair, and now he's bald, full of tattoos.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't Eric
does
Young.
Look very different, yeah. He doesn't have the big beard anymore, does he?
No.
He shaved the big beard off.
No, not at all.
Love Eric Young. He's a
I'd
world
like to see
champion
any
wrestler.
of those guys there, but maybe not the Good Brothers, because Gallows has had many, like he's had a couple of stints in TNA.
Yeah.
And I just feel like they should go back to New Japan. I feel like that's where they'd excel best.
Mm-hmm. I think they will. I think they're going to rejoin the Bullet Club.
Or will it be?
But it doesn't mean they can't do this as well, does it?
Will it be like a lot of Impact wrestlers where their contracts allow them to wrestle in other places?
Well, New Japan don't want anything to do with Impact. They won't work with them. So I think what this is going to be is a short run. It might be a one night only or a 6-week thing.
Yeah, well, that's if any of them show up. It could be a ploy to get more viewers. Just one of them shows up. One.
It could be. It could be.
I feel like EC3 would do really well if he went back there because of the reputation he built whilst he was there. If they play on that fact, and again, you've got Moose doing the whole Mr. Impact Wrestling, like the Impact, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. They could have EC3 come back or someone like that come back and dethrone Moose. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, at the minute, your number one contender is Ace Austin. I'd say all of these wrestlers are probably bigger stars than Ace Austin.
Yeah,
if they're back full time, I mean, I want to see all these guys wrestle everywhere. I want to see EC3 in NWA. I want to see him in All Elite Wrestling. I want to see him in Impact. I'd like to see these guys in as many places as possible. I think the more wrestling companies work together, the better the experience for the fans.
Definitely.
Why can't we have these guys, the Good Brothers, be on NWA for a bit and then go to New Japan and rejoin the Bullet Club? I assume with FTR, it will say in their AEW contract that you can go to New Japan and do the World Tag League, and you can go to NWA and do the Crockett Cup. I think contracts are going to start to be flexible.
And I feel like they have to be because the wrestling world's so like open. It's a shame to see all like the stars congested just in one place because they're not showcased at all, and it's a bit sad that the likes of like the UK independent scene and other independent scenes are closed at the minute because a lot of those guys who have left, I could imagine showing up in somewhere like ICW, Progress, like different places like that.
Imagine Spud back in the UK scene. He'd be brilliant. He was so good.
But then EC3 could have come over as well because they're good friends.
Yeah, I mean, they are a brilliant act together. I know in WWE it never made it to TV. It was only on house shows. But when they previously worked together in Impact, Spud and EC3 have brilliant chemistry together just as a tag team. And it's as a duo, it really works.
Definitely. And then obviously, formerly known Kurt Hawkins, Brian Myers, he's never worked for Impact, has he?
He has.
Yeah,
when it was Global Force, when it was GFW.
He's actually a former Impact tag champion. I think he had it with Trevor Lee briefly when it was Global Force versus Impact, and he was one of the Global Force guys that invaded and won the tag titles. So he does have a history in Impact, but it's quite brief. And he was like an invading wrestler from GFW. But he did win the tag straps with, I think he was Trevor Lee, if I remember correctly. So his work there was actually my favourite work of his career. He's
highly underrated, and I feel sorry for him because he's been slapped with some terrible gimmicks over the years.
Definitely.
And it's the same with Aaron Stevens.
Yeah.
Damien Sandow. Got given utter trash, but worked with it so well.
Do you know what? It was given rubbish, but he made it work.
Yeah.
If they'd have given those gimmicks to anyone else, it would have flopped a lot quicker, a lot harder.
One of the best things in recent memory, or things I got over with the fans so much, was Mizdow.
Yeah.
That worked.
If you notice, the roles reversed now in NWA Power, where he's got his sidekick who is over and gets the cheers. I remember how Miz used to get the boos and Sandow would get the cheers when they do that boo cheer, and now it's the other way around where they boo Sandow, Stevens, and they cheer the question mark. It's a good dynamic. It is growing a little bit stale now with the wacky comedy between the two and Mongrovian karate. It is getting a bit stale. They've been doing it since October now. Maybe it's time to change that up a little bit.
You've got to check out the little bits of Carney Land that
I've been watching it. Brilliant. It's Mongrovian. Yeah,
the history of
I've been showing them on the Facebook page. Speaking of which, we reached our 2,000 likes on Facebook today. So thank you to everybody on our Facebook page.
Thank you to everybody.
We have a little community on there now. So 2,000 of you. That's amazing. I think there were 17 likes when I took over, and so we've grown it together between all of us. With the just the content on there and the little community of people that pop up to talk about stuff. Yeah, it's a nice little community on our Facebook page. So
definitely. I'd just like to say, if you're watching or listening and you haven't liked, though, go click the like button, please.
That's it. 100%.
It would be much appreciated.
That goes for our YouTube channel, because this is streaming over Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and of course over Nova Radio 102.5 FM, and that's novaradio.co.uk. No matter how you're viewing this, if you could like and subscribe and share, that'd be fantastic. Obviously, if you're listening over radio, just keep tuning in every week, 8 o'clock every Wednesday.
Yeah. I mean, we are actually coming towards the end of the time that we have allotted tonight on Nova Radio. It's completely up to you guys what you want to do. Whereas we can continue on here if you like and keep the live videos going, or it's up to you.
Either way, I have to wrap up at 10 anyway. I can't be up much later than that. So I just wanted to double check: is there anything that has happened? I always double check just in case, like Ric Flair's suddenly died in the last 10 minutes or something.
Hey, don't jinx it. You've seen
there's the whole Nia Jax injuring Kairi Sane again.
Yeah, apparently people are saying it. I have been quite heavily critical of her, but apparently this one wasn't her fault. Apparently this was Kairi just overshooting it. But then apparently someone backstage in WWE has been talking to Louis Dangoor from Wrestle Talk and saying that no, it is not his fault and she needs to be sacked. And they're quite aggressively saying that she needs to leave.
Yeah, there's a lot of people getting a bit, because it's happening too often. But again, fast-tracked her up. They fast-tracked her up. She was really green.
She is one of those wrestlers that was signed because she was a model. People think because she was Samoan, she must have been in the ring since she was 2 or 3 years old. Not the case. Not the case. Even with these wrestlers who are Samoan and part of the Anoa'i family, they say, "Oh, well, I started wrestling when I was 17." But we know they were actually probably wrestling when they were 3 or 4, and with their cousins and with learning off their own uncles. With Nia Jax, it's not the case. She was one of the models, plus-size models they hired, and I think they just thought, well, she's Samoan, she must be tough. Stick her on call her up to the main roster. She's not ready. I think I would be sending her back to the PC. I think she's got massive potential. She's highly marketable, and I want to like her, and a part of me does like her. I just feel like if she's not safe, and you've got another Ahmed Johnson on your hand who's going to drop people on their heads and stuff like that, let's get that ironed out. Let's spend 18 months back at the PC. Then on NXT. They did it with Big Show. They sent Big Show back to NXT in 2000. They did it with Mark Henry in 2001. You can send main roster guys who have won world championships back to developmental. What's happened before, it can happen again.
Just send her back down for a while until she's gone out of people's minds and she's ready. Comes back up and she'll be so much better.
Yeah, look at Big Show. Happened in 2000. He was a world champion in WWE.
They sent him down to lose weight. He was, because that's around the time he was.
Yeah, he was a big old boy. He was big.
Yeah. Because I remember as the Giant in WCW, he could do kip-ups. He was quite agile.
He did a moonsault in one. I can't remember when it was, but there's one WCW show he did a moonsault. He was wrestling Hogan. I can't remember.
And then the late 90s, 99, 2000s, he just ballooned out.
Huge man. Another thing is that Christian is going to be on Raw next week, bringing back the Peep Show with Edge as his guest. Something to look forward to.
I'm calling that now. I was meant to bring that. I'm calling that now. Orton comes out and attacks Christian.
Yeah. Punts him in the head. He does a toe punch.
Yeah, just does something, yeah.
You think that, of course. Yeah, good. So I think that's pretty much everything. My battery, like Wayne's, is also going to die. I think we've covered pretty much everything from the last sort of week, haven't we? And what we're going to look forward to, obviously, In Your House Takeover.
Definitely.
Damo, have you got any songs we can play to people in Radioland?
Yeah, sorry. I've sort of signed. We're often handed over to I've given folk the links if they want to keep on. Just basically, I need to make sure that the next program kicks in automatically.
Good stuff.
Because otherwise,
so the next program will just pick up automatic, will it?
Yeah, it will do. Yeah, it's Pablo's Vault Horror tonight.
Oh, brilliant! Well, I love Pablo. He's a good man. I'm a big fan of his stuff. So are we no longer on Radioland?
Nope, but we are still live on
Facebook and YouTube and Twitch, are we? Cool.
Yeah, we certainly.
Okay. I think, unless there's something glaringly obvious.
I don't think we've missed. Oh, there was the whole. Did you see Tony Khan and Linda Hogan Twitter?
Hogan's banned. Yeah, he's like, oh, you're banned as well as your ex-husband. It's like, hang on, so Hulk Hogan's banned from AEW. What?
Yeah, what did he do?
I think he's referring to the. Do you remember in the sex tape he got caught using the N-word a few times?
Yeah.
And obviously that left a sour taste. And I think
definitely.
Since then his apology wasn't the most heartfelt apology that a lot of people would have liked. And I think that again.
Yeah, there was a few people. Taste. Well, apparently he was meant to be booked to win the Battle Royale. Did you read that?
I would have loved that. I would have popped very hard.
Because it was in Tampa, where he's from and where he lives. Yep. So they were going to book him not to take any bumps, eliminate a few people, and then go over.
Yeah, I would have popped.
I would have popped.
Hulk Hogan is my era of growing up with wrestling. When I first started watching wrestling, I was only about 2 years old, and Hulk Hogan was still on top then. So for me, I've got a lot of.
But if you ask non-wrestling fans to name some wrestlers, the chance five people they should probably name is Hulk Hogan, definitely. They'll name John Cena. They'll probably go, Dwayne Johnson used to be a wrestler, didn't he?
Yeah. In England, they'll say Big Daddy or Giant Haystacks from where from in the
UK. Steve, maybe not even Steve. Actually,
no, probably not. But the thing there was a thing recently where someone went around a shopping mall in America, and they had pictures of it was Stone Cold Steve Austin, Roman Reigns, and Kenny Omega. And I think it was 30% of people knew who Steve Austin was, 5% knew who Roman Reigns was, and nobody knew who Kenny Omega was.
That just shows the mainstream coverage, yeah. But anyway, guys, I'm looking at a pretend watch when my clock's actually right there.
Yeah, funny this actually. The last In Your House before this weekend was 1999, which was also the last year that I wore a wristwatch. Yet when people ask me the time, I still go like that 21 years after not wearing a wristwatch. Old habits die hard.
All the time. You got the time?
Oh, 21 years I've not worn a watch. Still go like that.
No. Well, I'll leave you guys with a compliment. Both you guys are looking well.
You too, mate. It's good to hear your voice.
I haven't been on for a few weeks. I'll try to get more of a regular occurrence.
Cool. Well, next week we've got Backlash to talk about, haven't we? So we'll.
Yes, we do.
Sweet.
Definitely. So I'm going to love you guys and leave you.
Love you, dude.
Later. Thank you for watching, anyone who's still watching.
We'll sign off for the day then.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks very much, man. It's great to see you guys again. And we'll be back next week somewhere around about 8 o'clock or just a little bit before online.
Brilliant, good stuff. All right, guys, in radio land and in social media land, I'm going to sign off.